to prosecute wildlife crimes like wildlife trafficking and illegal hunting, that is poaching. They promote biodiversity to support the growing human population while preserving existing species and habitats. National Geographic explorers such as conservation biologists Camille Caudrat and Titus Athola are working to slow the extinction of global species and to protect global biodiversity and habitats. Environmental filmmakers and photographers like Thomas Peschak are essential to conservation efforts as well, documenting and bringing attention to endangered wildlife all over the world. As universities, we cannot afford to be left behind in this noble and important role of wildlife conservation. And I think I'll pause here for a second and challenge all of us as biologists, or even our relatives, people who are related to us as biologists. If you go into National Geographics, and which I watch all the time as a biologist, I like watching and seeing what is happening all over the world to nature. And you will find that all the people who are reporting on our wildlife, some of them are right here in our national parks in Africa, but none of us are African scholars. That is a challenge to us as African scholars, African biologists. The people who are filming and reporting about the disappearance of the rhino, the disappearance of the elephant. Very few are also talking about the disappearance of the plant species. They are not Africans, but they are people who have come from other continents to do research here and report on our wildlife. I'm not saying they are doing the wrong thing, but I'm saying, isn't this biodiversity ours? Shouldn't we be the ones to be studying the plants which are in the national park, so that as a tourist is taken through the national park and he's told, can you see that lion about to hunt that antelope? We are telling them the grass it's stepping on is this grass. The tree that it has passed near is this tree. The birds which are flying around are these ones. That information is not there. And I say that because I enjoy going to the national parks as part of my holidays. That information is not there. And I know that. And I say that because the tour guides, I enjoy going to talking about the animals, not the part of my holidays, or even the insects. And I know that. And I say that which are there. The tour guides enjoy talking about the animals, interacting with the animals, that information, or even the insects. And I know that. And I say that which are there. The tour guide offers quality wildlife conservation courses, both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. The graduate studies are designed to provide training in ecological principles, field research, and application of these tools to conservation and management of wildlife population communities and their habitat resources. In addition, a team of experts from the Department of Zoology are also involved in research on wildlife conservation with the aim perpetuating the wildlife conservation agenda in Kenya. The Research Fund, a Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, aims at developing a software that can be used to predict the genetic effects of the black rhino translocation before they are actually translocated. This is to control against the effects of possible inbreeding, both at source and area of translocation. Today, we have invited an expert with a world of experience in this area of wildlife conservation. He will shed more insights on how we can enhance and perfect our participation and influence as a university as we join hands with stakeholders across the globe in making the world a better home for wildlife and human today for prosperity. And as we continue with the conference, I'm challenging participants that we come up with ways in which we can work towards being the people who are actually most concerned about conservation of our own wildlife. It belongs to Africa. We should be the most concerned about its conservation. I'm not saying we kick out the people who are already doing, but I'm saying we join them in giving the story about our wildlife. As we talk about wildlife conservation, let us enrich that story. Let us include the plants. Let us include the birds. Let us include the insects. Let us include the microorganisms. As we talk about wildlife conservation and biodiversity, let us now bring in the issue of climate change. How is climate change impacting on our wildlife? Yesterday, as I was listening to the news, I heard a very interesting story from farmers in a place called Mugumoini. I don't know whether it's Moranga, Nyeri, or even Kiambu, but they said they are from Mugumoini. And what is most interesting is that they have ants, the small ants, which have invaded them. They have invaded their farms, invaded their homes. The lady who was talking was saying, as I open my cupboard in the kitchen, they are full. When I go to the farm to harvest, invaded their homes. They are all over. The lady who was talking was saying, how is this happening? As I open my cupboard in the kitchen, they are full. She was asking. She was talking to the farm to invaded their homes. All over. The lady who was talking was saying, how is this happening? I open my cupboard in the kitchen, they are full. Asking. She was talking to the farm to invaded their all over. The lady who was talking was saying, how is this happening? They control their population. She was talking to the farm to invaded their all over. The lady who was talking was saying, how is this happening? They control their population. She was talking to the farm to invaded their all over. The lady who was talking was saying, how is this happening? They control their population. She was talking to the how is this invaded all over? The lady was talking was saying, how is this control their population? She was talking to the how is this invaded all over? The lady was talking was saying, how is this control their population? She was talking to the how is this invaded all over? The lady was talking was saying, how is this population? She was talking to the how is this invaded all over? And robust discussion from all the participants, including our audience on the virtual platform. I hope that out of this meeting, you will come up with many solutions and also many things that you can do. I hope that out of this meeting, you will, for example, in this country, do we have a conference for biological scientists? I attended a meeting of economic botanists the other day, and they were saying there are very, very few such conferences in Kenya. Could Jomo Kenyatta University, College of Pure and Applied Sciences, School of Biological Sciences champion the formation of a conference for biological scientists where you invite biologists from all over the country who are researchers to discuss some of these things, to address these very important topics and questions which will come out of today's seminar. And this will be a platform where biologists can share ideas, they can mingle, and they can be able to even come up with research collaborations as they address the problems of Africa the problems of East Africa, the problems of Kenya, as far as biodiversity and wildlife conservation is concerned. Very key areas which are right there, even in our midterm plan, also in Agenda 2030, and also in the African Agenda 2063. The issue of biodiversity conservation is addressed very, very much in those agendas for Africa. So I want to stop there and thank you very much for inviting me to give the opening speech and to wish you all the best. I will stay a little bit, then I will exit and join the board, but I'm sure I'll be able to engage with the principal of the college to know exactly what happened, and maybe the Dean Biological Sciences. So I wish you all the best, and I wish to declare the seminar open. Thank you very much. So it's over to you, Dr. Mwangi.
For your wise comments. This is your area. For me, it's a gray area, but I was able to follow, and I'm also excited. I might also be joining the team. This moment, I'll ask our DVC RP, Miriam Kusa, a few remarks, read the profile of our speaker, and also invite also the speaker also. Karibu.
Okay, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Victoria Ngumi, our guest speaker, Dr. John Waithaka, the Principal of Corpus, Professor Thuku Thiongo, and the Dean Biological Sciences, Dr. Mwangi. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I don't know what to say after my VC has talked, but it's just to tell you welcome to this seminar and to thank her for giving such encouraging remarks. Just to say, what I was to say before she spoke was just to say that this seminar is one of a series of seminars that are organized in the university, and this particular one has been organized in partnership with the Corpus and the College of Corpus, that's College of Applied and Pure Sciences, Applied and Pure and Applied Sciences, Corpus, and RP under the Directorate of Research and Innovation. And I think I want to laud this kind of partnership because almost every week we have webinars that normally we endeavor to disseminate information so that it can reach the wider public. So I want to laud and to thank Dr. Kinyuru, the Director of Research Innovation, and our Principal of Corpus, and also the Dean. I think this cooperation should go on because RP cannot do these things alone. We have to partner with colleges. So we thank you very, very much. Our guest speaker, this is what we normally do, and we are very happy that you are here within the research product extension. Just to add on what the VC has said, apart from Corpus, we have other colleges like College of Health Sciences, College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. We have College of Human Resource Management, and also College of Engineering and Technology. And we have thematic areas. So this particular case that we are having here is organized by one of our colleges, and actually research themes are tagged on the different colleges because they cover different areas. Before I read your resume, I would like to let you know, our guest speaker, that within the RPE, actually, our docket really is in charge of research, innovation, and extension. And we really want to see that the university staff and faculty are doing research, not just doing the research, but also sharing that research with other larger public. And this is one of the activities that ensures that we share this information. We have extension services, we have linkages within the directorate to make sure we link with others. And I hope that after this, we can maybe develop a partnership with your organization. And then we also do display and share innovations. We develop innovations and also try to commercialize them. So that's in a nutshell what actually we do in this directorate, and we are this division, and we are very happy that you accepted to come to give us insights in this very important area. Just it has been well articulated by our Vice Chancellor. I do not want to re-emphasize what she has said. It was very, very clear, the importance of the area of discussion this morning. So with that much ado, ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker, let me read your resume. So Dr. John Waithaka is a career conservation biologist. He has worked as a lecturer.
Recording in progress.
Yes, next door. Research fellow for the World Conservation Society and deputy director at the Kenya Wildlife Service.
Recording stopped.
Manager of the European Union's Biodiversity Conservation Program, executive director of the African Conservation Center and conservation biologist for the National Parks of Canada in Ottawa. In these capacities, he has directed, managed, and coordinated diverse national and international programs and worked with governmental and non-governmental organizations, academic institutions, policymakers, and donor agencies. Dr. Waithaka has held many other positions, including being the regional chair of the IUCN World Commission. I hope you know what IUCN stands for, being in that area. This is on protected areas for East Africa and Southern Africa. He's been a co-chair of the IUCN Wilderness Specialist Group, Canadian Committee to IUCN, member of the UNESCO IUCN World Heritage Panel, IUCN Expert Assessment Group for Green List of Protected Areas, member of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas Steering Committee, co-editor of International Journal of Protected Areas and Conservation, and the director of the 2021 Africa Protected Areas Congress. I think this called for our collaboration with IUCN. I hope Dr. Kaibui I hope he's here or is not here. We need to follow up on this. So maybe through the college, I would like us to forge more collaboration with IUCN, a very important organization. He has sat on many boards, including the Kenya Wildlife Service Board of Trustees, African Conservation Fund, USA, the George Wright Society, USA, Community Development Trust Fund, Biodiversity Conservation Program, Elephant Research Trust Fund, and the Natural Resources and Engineering Research Council of Canada, among others. So it's just a small snippet of what all other things that we can't read all of them because of time. But you can see this represents a very rich experience. Dr. Waithaka has been a guest lecturer at the University of Ottawa, Ontario, Carleton University, Ottawa, Ontario, McGill University, Montreal, Quebec, University of Waterloo, Ontario, and Nissan University, North Bay, Ontario, and St. Lawrence University, Canton, New York. He is currently working as a consultant for the United Nations Department of Social and Economic Affairs. Dr. Waithaka holds a bachelor's degree in botany and zoology, University of Nairobi. I had a vice chancellor saying they were classmates. I don't know, in school together. So we're happy to be associated with you through our vice chancellor and directly to you. And MSc in biology of conservation, University of Nairobi, and PhD in zoology at Kenyatta University. Who says if you study in Kenya, you cannot go far? Because you have studied somewhere, we're just a Kenyan study, but it's international now. So don't give up, even if you have done all your degrees here in Kenya. Some people say I must go and study outside. He has authored and co-authored scientific papers and articles in journals, books, and magazines, and participated in public debates on issues related to wildlife conservation, natural resources management, and sustainable development. Over the years, he has received research grants, workplace recognition awards, and international conservation awards. His passion is to contribute towards the achievement of the global vision of just world that values people and conserves nature. He holds both a Kenyan and Canadian citizenships, thanks to the government allowing dual citizenship. We don't know if we didn't have that, if we would have chosen to go to Canada, but because of that provision, he holds the dual citizenship of Kenya and Canada. And that is our speaker today. I want to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Waithaka. The time is yours. We are happy you came to give us this very important seminar. We listened, and then thereafter we can have discussion. Most welcome.
Thank you. Excuse me, Prof. Can I control it from you? Yes, thank you. The Vice Chancellor, very nice to see you and to hear your voice. I think the last time we met was in 1984, but I'm happy to know that you are still there, and I'll see you later. Thankful to all of you. Allow me not to go through the protocols because I might miss some people out. But I'm also glad that I am meeting many people that I know. And online, I've seen people like Vivian Matiru, who was also our classmate together with the VC. I've seen Margaret Vichui. She was our year mate, although she was not in our lecture halls. Professor Thuku was 1 year ahead of us. So I think next year I will not be having hair. I've worked also with a lot of you. I can see Winnie Kiru here. I was her boss in 1995 when we were doing all that we could to conserve the African elephant, and she epitomizes what I would call a committed conservationist, both here and away. There's also Shadrach, who was also one of my staff at Kenya Wildlife Service. And I think there are many others, majority here, but because all your noses and mouths are covered, I may not be able to recognize you. I am very happy that Professor Thuku pushed me into this, pushed in the sense that we've been talking about it for quite some time, but I have been very, very busy the last few months working for the UN. And when you work for them, they don't give you any breathing space. So when he said, I have to come and it has to be now, and I was finishing last week, it was very hard for me to say no, but I knew I would not be adequately prepared. I am going to talk about the role of the universities in conserving nature. I'm just going a bit broader than wildlife, because we need to conserve nature in order to conserve wildlife. And nature conservation is the act of protecting the Earth's natural resources. And we do that because these resources are very important, both for us and for the future generation. We need a healthy nature in order to live. In fact, as I will demonstrate within the course of this session, conserving nature is everybody's responsibility. It's not the responsibility of biologists. If you eat food, it comes from nature. If you drink water, it comes from nature. If you take medicine, it is derived from nature. If you do whatever you do, it comes from nature. So nature is so important and critical for all of us. And from today henceforth, I want you to take it that it is your personal responsibility to conserve nature. It was not until 1972 at the Stockholm Conference that the UN realized that nature is so critical for survival of man and all other species. So the UN convened a conference that was the first conference on human environment and development. Before then, nature and natural resources were being used as if they and it is that meeting that recommended the formation of the United Nations Environmental Program, which has been very active in making every effort possible within very difficult environments, political environments, to help conserve nature. I think for all of us who are in conservation know about the 1992 Rio Earth Summit that came up with Agenda 21, what we would do, what the world would do in the 21st century. And this agenda focused global attention on planet's degradation. And through this agenda, through this summit, the CBD, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, was established or created. And nearly all the countries are signatories to the Convention on Biological Diversity, except the US, of course, because the US has refused consistently to approve or ratify some of these international conventions for their own political and economic reasons. In 2002, there was the Johannesburg Conference, which it's called the World Summit on Sustainable Development. And that summit put a strong emphasis on the need to conserve nature for sustainable development. There is no sustainable development that can happen anywhere unless we conserve nature. In something I did not add here, as we prepare to get into the 21st century, there was another effort by the CBD called the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, looking at how what efforts need to be made so that in the 21st century, we do whatever we can in order to conserve nature. And out of the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, which was published in 2005, the CBD came up with what we call the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity. And you remember, if you are still with us, that the year 2010 was called the decade of biodiversity. And the agenda that was set and the goals that were set to be achieved by 2010 globally were not met. There is no country in the world that was able to do that. So in 2021, after the evaluation of the world position in conserving biodiversity, the CBD, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, we came up with what we call the Strategic Plan for Biodiversity 2020 or 2011 to 2020, which we also call the Aichi targets. I don't know whether you are conversant with this bit. I think I will, you don't need to write notes because I'm going to make this available because I would want us to engage more on any of these areas. So the biodiversity Aichi targets were also not achieved between 2011 and 2020. An assessment has been made, and the Vice Chancellor has referred to it. There's a report of 2019 by we have actually failed to achieve most of the goals that were set. You also know about the Agenda 2030 on the Sustainable Development Goals, and Goal 14 and 15 specifically addresses conservation of marine and terrestrial environments as a precondition for ensuring sustainable. And now we are working through the leadership of the CBD, or Convention on Biological Diversity, on post-2020 biodiversity framework. After we have failed in 2010, we failed in 2020. What else we did? So coming up with what we call the post-2020 biodiversity framework, which sets an ambitious plan to implement broad-based action to bring about transformation in society's relationship with biodiversity, ensuring that by 2020, the shared vision of living in harmony with nature is achieved. With the CBD has set that target that by 2050, we shall be living in harmony with nature. Otherwise, life is going to be very problematic living. Just briefly, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment came up with very good information that we continue to use. They came up with values and benefits of nature, and clearly elaborated. Nature is so important for providing system services, supporting life, regulating life, and providing cultural values. And some of you may have seen this, not very clear. Everything that is about life, the way it is supported by a healthy nature. And you also know that the coronavirus came as a result of interference in nature and natural processes. The Vice Chancellor has also talked about the stresses or the threats to nature, and they include habitat change, climate change, invasive species, having too many people, pollution, overexploitation of the resources that we have. If you look at the trends, those arrows are showing when it is red, it means that things are very bad. And when the arrows are going up, it says the threat is bad. And you can see almost everywhere things are moving from worse to worse. And I don't know where we go afterwards. That is the global trend in all the indicators of biodiversity conservation. The global trends over the last 50 years in the capacity of ecosystems to sustain the provisions of 18 categories of ecosystem services that I showed in the other slide are shown here. And you can see that the trend on this side, the red one showing everything is going the wrong way. And it's dangerously going that way. The only areas where things appear to be going the right way is in the provision of energy and food and materials. And you know, to produce energy, we are using biodiversity. So it is not something that is very positive. So we are using firewood and using petrol and so on and so forth, and polluting the environment and contributing to climate change. Food and feed, the things are getting better. That means we are growing more food. And what also that means is that we are using more land. And we are having more food, inputs that are also creating problems by biodiversity. So the situation is bad. I just want to also show you the trends in indicators of drivers, the state of nature, nature's contribution to people, and the responses as assessed in 2018. Now, the drivers of biodiversity loss are worsening. This is from the year 2000 to 2020. The first one says the situation is worsening for the drivers. So if it's about climate change, the situation is getting worse. If it's about pollution, the situation is getting worse. If it's about invasive species, the situation is getting worse, and so on. The state of nature between 2000 and 2020, you can see instead of improving, things are going the wrong way. And that tells you our forests are getting degraded, our waters are getting more polluted, our grasslands are getting more affected, and the impacts of the human impacts are getting more and more as we go on. Nature's contribution to people. Some aspects are increasing, as we have seen, food, energy, and so on. So you can see one line is going up and another one is going down. Because as you improve one, you are affecting nature in another way. And finally, we are responding to all these challenges. And the last part shows how we are responding. And responses are in form of policies, taking action, creating more protected areas, trying to minimize pollution, coming up with policies, and so on and so forth. So we are doing very well at that. The problem is, are these policies working? And as the VC said, and probably something I might be able to, if I don't forget, the reason why some of these responses are not helping is because we are coming up with solutions that are not homemade. Because as I will show you, out of these assessments affecting Africa, there were that 320 assessments on all these things in Africa. Only 6 of those assessments were from African universities. Imagine, 332 assessments, but only a few assessments were made by scholars from African universities. And the 6 universities are in South Africa. So, did we get disconnected with our natural resources ourselves? So what's happening as we degrade our biodiversity? You can see the proportion of population with improved drinking water in Africa. Africa is properly decorated there because the red shows everything is bad, the yellow showing everything is going bad. And you can see the other countries are doing well. It's only Africa that is not doing well. So I'm challenging all of us to play their part. We have, sorry, let me not. Proportion, this one shows the proportion of population with improved sanitation. Improved. In Europe, they did not even need to give us their data because their sanitation is good. But you can see also in sanitation, Africa is doing very badly. Sewer systems, I live in Kawasukari, I have to dig in my own sewer system. I don't know how it works in other places. And even those that have good sewers, there's no water. And just looking at human population growth, globally, we see the highest population growth in areas of the highest biodiversity in Africa. That is why Africa is red. So the areas that have the highest biodiversity are the areas where there is highest population growth. And what happens is that they edge out species. Again, most poverty, global poverty is found in Africa. But most poverty in Africa is also found in areas with the highest levels of biodiversity. You need to go to Masai Mara. When you're inside there, it's 5-star with airplanes and airstrips and 4x4s and so on. Get out of the park boundary. People are in sandals and children may not be going to school. Areas of great importance for conservation harbor the poorest people in Africa. And just to emphasize this, Africa is the only region where human population is growing fast and resources diminishing even faster. So the green ball shows the population, and the bigger it is, the bigger the population, and the red one shows the gross national product as a measure of well-being, the GDP. So you can see, like in North America, the GDP is very high, and the population is very tiny. They are doing well. In fact, had it not been for my conviction that we need to change something in Africa, I would be in my house in Canada, because the situation there is very good. So threats to biodiversity. And here you really have a lot to do, because the reason why we are talking about these things to intellectuals is so that you can see the difference that you can make. And each one of you has a responsibility. Each of one of you, the biggest brains that we have, and probably the biggest brains are in this place, in Kenya, because the brains that are able to deal with science and technology are not the very simple brains. So as we talk about the key threats to biodiversity, and agriculture and aquaculture is one of them, then you have to ask yourself, what is it that we can do from your area of specialization? So agriculture, residential, transport. I've tried to put some photographs there. You can see the railway line that we put through Nairobi National Park and some animals down there, and on and on. We're not going to talk about these threats, but I emphasize them. But the emphasis is we have what it takes to make a difference. We've planned a lot of developments. These are the roads that have been planned, and some are in Africa. They are called the road corridors or development corridors. Some are going on and so on, and they are good because we need to develop our countries. The problem is we do these things without giving any attention to environmental impacts. If there was the effort to do an environmental impact assessment and go by those outcomes, we'll be able to do all these roads without impacting our future. I put some photographs there of Canada. You can see they developed their roads a long time ago, more than 100 years. Now they understand the impact that these roads are having, killing people because of collision of people and because they go through the parks. People collide, vehicles collide with the animals and people die, and on and on and on. So they are spending a lot of money making overpasses and underpasses so that vehicles can move and animals can move too. The problem with our system here is that a decision is made and it's political and there's nothing you can do about it. When you scream, when Winnie Kiro are screaming about an open national park, they were just wasting their time. And the greatest tragedy here is that the people who know best do not back the few who are out there. So the state of our ecoregions, particularly the hotspots, wow, the battery is running low. That should be type C. Sorry. So the biological biodiversity hotspots in Africa are getting endangered. The status of our terrestrial ecosystems are getting worse. Invasion by alien species is increasing, as you can see that map. Within a period of just about 12 years, the Africa has gone red. And what is the impact? If you look at just one of the African ecosystems, Lake Chad, we have lost 95% of Lake Chad within the last 60 years. It was once the 6th largest lake in the world and the 2nd largest in Africa. It's shared by many countries. It offers a lifeline to 40 million people. Decreased from 26,000 square kilometers to 1,500 square kilometers. You can imagine how much ecosystem services it would be providing to these regions if it was operating full capacity. Climate change shows that rivers are drying up in Mount Kenya. 84% of the glaciers have dried up. 8 out of the 18 glaciers have disappeared. And the rivers are getting less water. That is here at home. Protected areas are supposed to be helping, but they are not helping to the extent that they should. The dredge construction, you can see over time, the iconic wildlife species, like just 3, for example. For the elephant, it used to cover all the area that is blue. Now it's only found in those dots that are red. Extinct from all those other areas. Same, you can see it's same for the hippo. And it's even more critical for the rhino. We have lost 97% of our lions over the last 100 years. And research shows that our national parks are failing to conserve the large mammals. In fact, there's been a decline of about 60% of large mammals. And one of the contributing factors is corruption. In fact, the National Geographic in 2003 found corruption to be the top threat to African mammals. And everywhere there is a decline in wildlife. Actions to reduce the loss are outlined here and their effect. You can see from the year 2000, the decline in biodiversity has been constant until around 20-something. And scenarios have now been created if we want to conserve biodiversity into the future, if we want to turn the curve, to bend the curve so that we can recover this biodiversity loss, we need to do conservation, we need to do action, climate action, cut pollution, get into sustainable production and reduce consumption. There. You can see just by conserving, we are only going to make not very significant impact, because most of the threats.
You want to change for you?
Yes, because most of the threats this one. Yes. Oh. Oh, I can continue as the yes. Yes, most of the threats to biodiversity conservation are not biological. And I want you to take this. Threats to conservation are mainly not biological. They are social, they are economic, and they are political. That is why we can have the railway passing through Nairobi National Park, whether the conservationists want it or not. That is why we can get a road through very sensitive ecological areas, whether we say that it is going to damage ecological integrity or not. You can see on the right, the issue of consumption. In 1970, the global consumption through exportation of agricultural products was, as you can see, that arrow shows the level of global consumption through export of agricultural products. You can see how high it has increased by the year 2017. That's when this one was done. Any increase in consumption has its impact on biodiversity. So, just to show that in Africa, things are getting worse because the drivers of change are just increasing. And we are likely, if you look at Central Africa, East Africa, North Africa, the only area that is green is the last part. And the last part is about protected areas. Protected areas are conserving biodiversity. Everywhere else, the situation is getting worse. And even in protected areas, we have very significant problems. Very significant, but we cannot go into all those things now. So with all these challenges, what will be the role of the university? All these are my views. And I am an educator myself. I have taught at the universities. In 13 years, until I retired from Parks Canada, I was conducting research. I was coordinating research that is done in Canada, in national parks, national marine conservation areas, and so on. And I was working with 102 universities every year. So I feel I have some competence to make some suggestions. The role of universities. Universities play an important role as leaders in teaching and learning, education, research, and all these skills are needed in order to address the issues of biodiversity and environmental degradation. Universities, and I'm saying here that one of the roles is that they should be catalysts for social transformation, because the threats to biodiversity are not biological. And unless we engage the people, we are not going anywhere. So, because universities provide the highest level of education, and education is the most important tool for social transformation, I think if the universities function as they should, they have a big role in changing the behavior of people. And because they provide skills for high-level jobs that attract decision and policymakers, these decision makers and policymakers should be adequately informed about conservation issues and the impact of loss of biodiversity. I shifted a bit from being wildlife, because some people, when they hear wildlife, they think of elephant and rhino and hyena and those kind of things. And having been a student of biology of conservation for many years, and knowing where we have come from, for example, during our time, all the research that was being done by conservation biologists. And you'd see the ecology of the hyena, the ecology of the branded mongoose, the feeding behavior of kurokuta. But those are things that were not helping us. So if you know that they eat beetles, so what? And those things were being done by outsiders. In fact, I was the first Kenyan African to do research on elephants. And it was very hard for my proposal to be accepted. In fact, I had to threaten to go to parliament and say, I want to study Kenyan elephants in Kenyan national parks, in a Kenyan university. Nobody can stop. Because all the experts then were Mzungus. And the first time I saw Winnie was in 1992, when we met at Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, and all the experts, African Elephant Specialist Group experts, were Mzungus. I don't know what drew you into it, but me, I got it to fight, and I've been fighting from then until now. So we need people with high-level skills in areas of policy, and those people are manufactured here. So by providing highly skilled manpower and cutting-edge research, and I said, when we start coming up with scenarios like I was showing there, that information is not from us. We do not participate. And I know we have various problems, funding, what, but we can discuss how we can overcome those things. And we have to do that. Because unless you become independent, you will be driven by the drivers that have been driving us And the situation in Africa has always been going the wrong way. So a change is needed. So I am expecting universities, and forgive me for being too ambitious, to provide the new knowledge and skills that are needed to meet the challenges of sustainable development and healthy living. 2, to raise public awareness on relevant issues. I remember during our time at the university, when we were the graduates, we used to refuse things that the governments of those days were proposing, and we would fight, but we got overcome with bullets and detention. But we are out of that phase now. Academic freedom is back, I think, but people have been corrupted in their thinking. The universities need to provide the basis for informed decision-making. The universities, as catalysts of social transformation, need to promote responsible behavior. And we'll talk about this as we go on. And you need each one of you to think of how you can participate in this. Like when it is about developing scenarios that provide the most plausible paths into the future, and not just that, also elaborating on the consequences of choice. If you give scenarios this way or this way or this way, then you need to be able to tell the decision makers that if you take this decision, if you take this path, this is the likely outcome. And somebody told us that something has consequences. Choices have consequences. So if you choose to do the wrong thing, then there are those consequences. So as key institutions in the process of social change and development, we expect them to play a role in building new institutions of civil society, NGOs, working with NGOs. Because sometimes it is not possible for you to come up with whatever, but you can use NGOs like those that we know exist. Developing new cultural values and training and socializing people on new social. This may appear philosophical, but that is what is needed. Probably because we are supposed to be think tanks, and I'm going to come to that. Someone told me that now in Kenya these days, if you have an idea, you cannot give it to somebody else because it will be taken. If you have a research idea, you cannot tell somebody because it will be taken. Now, unless we move from that cocoon, we are going to continue suffering. For example, I have developed many programs myself, and people benefit from those programs. So don't fear, open up. So universities, as I expect universities to be centers of excellence in conservation, because you are supposed to be the centers of excellence. Where else do we have brains such as those that are between your ears? And if you put them together, so excellence in producing cutting-edge conservation research. And let me tell you, from experience, money flows where needs are being met. Money flows where needs are being met. So if somebody takes your project, they can go and hang with it. Your brain is still active, right? And if you sell that idea to me, because of me, I don't want to take your project, I want to enhance it, then we can work together. I can introduce you to my networks. Yeah? So don't say there is no money. What we need are good ideas, and we will see how we can make them work. We expect you to be excellent in providing multi-skill knowledge development to support inclusive conservation. I'm now talking about inclusive. It's not just biologists. It's about everybody. So if you produce like, I looked at our curriculum at the University of Nairobi Biology of Conservation of 1985. It's the same curriculum. Things have changed. So we need to change with times. Excellent in providing solutions to conservation challenges by focusing on needs-driven research. Needs-driven. Excellent in producing science that is integrated and partnered. If you are doing research on your own, you are going to take forever. But if you integrate it, it is social, it's economic, it's environmental, it is this, it is that, then it's possible to get partnerships to help not just get the results, but go beyond the results. Because we have so many theses, but we end there. And it makes no sense to come up with a thesis, come up with very good ideas, and then park it there. So partnership is so important because it helps us go to the next step. In universities, we expect to fight equity, diversity, and inclusivity. There are some university departments where I see complaints at hii Kikuyu from top to bottom. Hii ni nini? Hii, you know, when we reduce ourselves to that level, then how can we solve problems? Because we cannot get the best brains. Excellence in research enterprise and innovation. And that means that it is research that is likely to generate or lead to external funding. I know how hard it is to get funding because I started struggling to get funding in 1985 when I was doing my research for my MSc research in Nairobi National Park. Very hard, but it is possible. It's possible because we have been doing them. Excellence in sharing and communicating research findings. And that is where we fail. We get research findings, but we do not communicate them. So our work becomes irrelevant. And we have a thesis that is in somebody's office and library. So sharing and communicating research findings is one of the key areas of opening up the funding envelope. Excellence in promoting and encouraging partnerships with industry. We've been fighting this. Like when I was the head of the elephant program, I would go to Kenya breweries because they are using our elephant as our symbol to advertise themselves. Yeah? Just being proactive. And by the way, they are not supportive. Like the one told me that you have to allow us to paint that elephant with the tuskers so that it can go advertising tuskers everywhere. But the point is we must find ways of partnering with industry, because in whichever area you are, there are some industries that are interested. And they rely on you to provide that information. Then they consume. Excellent in identifying and seizing opportunities for commercialization of research. The DVC talked about that. And excellence in enhancing investment in discovery-driven research. These are things that we can have a whole day talking about. And I hope for those interested, we can have another session and try and see how we can actualize some of these things. So what I'm saying here, just in diagrammatic form, is universities should provide all inclusive professional skills for ensuring sustainable conservation. And the point I'm making here is that the field of conservation has been mainly left in the hands of biologists, although the challenges that we face are political and economic and social. So if we do not equip our conservationists with all these skills, we are likely to fail. And I'm asking, just looking at the assessment, the Africa's dismal progress towards achieving biodiversity targets. There were 20 of them, as I explained earlier. Why was Africa not able to achieve the conservation targets by 2020? Could it be a capacity issue because we do not have the right people and skills? Probably. And one of my targets, the only two targets we were able to achieve are the ones in green, and they are about the Nagoya Protocol and the National Biodiversity Action Plans. These are documents. These are producing documents. And you know what? You get a consultant. Yeah? You get a consultant and they produce the documents on biodiversity action plans. But where it matters, like biodiversity values integrated, reducing invasive species, reducing biodiversity loss, reducing pollution. No, we are not achieving. Is it an issue of skill? Probably. Also said that universities should be the think tank. Yes, you are, because you have what it takes, but you should also think outside the tank. You get so much into thinking within the, what I wanted to say is you think outside the box. Don't be a think tank that just thinks within the tank. And why am I saying this? It's because universities by nature house many disciplines that can be brought together to explore things, so that you can be able to take a multidimensional approach, multidisciplinary approach to addressing issues. Again, universities are able to do things that others are not able to do. You can, for example, discuss what we call elephant in the room, those things that, because of exercise of academic freedom, you can be able to discuss them. Outside, you may be in trouble. Is my time over? Universities should expose students to real issues. When we went to work for Kenya Wildlife Service, with all the theories that we had, the problems you get when you sit on that seat is an elephant has killed somebody. That is not ecology. The cheetah has eaten somebody's goat. By exposing students to things that are happening out there, they become better conservationists. And universities should be able to give answers to persistent problems. I do give this. With Kenya Wildlife Service and conservancies protecting rhinos 24 hours, 24/7, they're still going down. A Maasai boy looking after his father's livestock, whether they are 100, they go home. And his weapons are so could the future of conservation lie in solving this paradox? Because it's about value. And the universities to tell us. Who else has the freedom to say these things? And that universities must strive to be relevant by focusing on societal needs. I've talked about it. If you don't know what you need to do, we have published priorities for conservation. About 45 of us, I have underlined my name to show that I am there. Yes? And there are only 3 people from Africa. One from Uganda, myself, and somebody from South Africa. Where are you people? Well, the point is, we must strive to be relevant by focusing on issues that are affecting people. And I'm saying that universities have the capacity to settle intrigues. In 1985, somebody called Tiberi, a journalist, wrote a book, Africa in Crisis. 1989, Graham Hancock, he called us the Lords of Poverty, a book. Anybody who has read it, seen it? I can lend it to you. We are lords of poverty because we have all what we need. So we are lords, but we are the poorest among the poor. 1996, Africa in crisis. Is there hope? 2010, now I'm asking, is it going to be the same as it was in the beginning? If you go to Anglican Church, they say as it was in the beginning, is now and ever shall be. Is that where we want to be? The people that are going to change that are you people. Because of these brains, I'm putting a question there and I want to read it. Where else do we find top brains in one campus with specialization in areas such as anthropology, archaeology, art, biology, climatology, and I continue, they are all here. And the solutions will come if you put all these mites together. Not working in a pigeonhole. Because you are able to destroy ignorance. I don't know whether you know navel gazing. Navel is this thing. When you just focus on small things, education kills that. And it challenges romantic views. Romantic views about wildlife. Until you become a responsible person in Kenya Wildlife Service, you always think the elephants are wonderful. And yes, they are. And you can see somebody like, elephant is my bedroom. Those are called romantic views. You are able to challenge status quo. I think it is possible these days. During Goge Wathiongo's time, during our time, we got into problems. Now you can challenge status quo. Not in a bad way, but providing. So education helps us to dig deep into issues and open doors to critical thinking. So one of the questions I'm asking, can the universities help us disaggregate issues? Instead of lumping things together, Africans are poor. What is the cause of the poverty? Is it lack of capacity? Is it lack of policy failure? Is it because of what? And I'm saying also universities should invest in long-term research and monitoring. The Mzungus here, I know, are involved in long-term monitoring. They don't do a lot of things. My supervisor, called Dr. David Weston, started working in Amboseli in 1967, and he is there every day. Cynthia Moss, about the same time, looking at elephants in Amboseli. We have been beneficiaries of those people. Another one called Ian Douglas Hamilton, counting elephants in the air from I don't know when. Yeah, they are able to monitor and be able to make decisions based on evidence. We hit, and so we don't even know where the problem is. So I also would like our universities to be third-party thought leaders. And in conservation, managers make decisions in politically charged environments. And their decisions are swayed this way. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. When you bring science into these decisions, other people start contributing. Integrity. And we know that universities are given that respect. So it would be important that you use those opportunities. As I said, you should help develop communication strategies to inform policy and be involved in research, and not just research, not just providing results, but also giving implications of the decisions that we take. And these days, with online things, I think universities can be able to provide us with a lot of information. I don't have to go to Google to know how to grow avocados when there is JKUAT. And we would like to produce adaptable graduates able to function in a rapidly changing world. And I am proposing some of the skills that the university should consider. For us, when we were being trained, we were trained on technical capacity. So ecological monitoring, ecological dynamics, predator-prey relationships, drawing those graphs, so very, very proficient. But when you get out of the university, you need skills in leadership, you need skills in administration, because I was taken from the university and I was made the elephant program coordinator. How do I coordinate? I was taken and made with very little experience, the director of Kenya Wildlife Service in 2003, and I said no. I said no because the people who are most qualified were being kicked out. If you kick out the most qualified, the Leakers, the Westerns, then you put Waidaka there. What am I going to do? I think I was the first person to say no to a presidential appointment. So this is the last slide. There is need to facilitate the future. The future conservation lies to a large extent within the hands of universities, as I have tried to explain, through the education and service and the research that they provide. So I'm saying if universities are this important, then they should be provided with every facilitation. And that should be a solemn responsibility of a civilized society. It should be the role of the society to support universities to do what they're supposed to do. We have struggled to fundraise here and there because we live in a society that does not value conservation. In Canada, the Canadians were asked to name the most 3 important icons. And their national parks were number 3, after the army and healthcare. National parks were number 3. Canadians are the ones who force their governments to establish national parks because they understand. Here, you struggle, but we are willing to help you in the struggle to the extent that we are able. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Igata. Now, we are going to have a short session of question and answers from the audience. But I think we better give our guests a better clap. Again, it's to me, it's a very informative talk or presentation from our guests. But to me, as a biologist, I'm an ecologist with interest in ecosystem services, both in natural and agricultural landscapes. And it's always a controversy, Daktari, about development and conservation. Because when we are opening up the roads, or one of the things that I've seen in the reports by the national government, opening up the roads is also contributes conservation, in that you are able to making electricity accessible. People in the rural areas will not harvest trees for wood fuel. They will have access to LPG gas that will be easily delivered there. So it's a 50-50 thing, Daktari, and probably you can give us an insight, because those countries that are better developed, they have more roads. But for us who are less developed and who have high diversity, we have fewer roads. Now, do we sacrifice development for the sake of conservation? It's a 50-50 issue, and maybe Daktari, you can just give your opinion on that.
Okay, this is not an opinion, it's an expert assessment. I started from 1972 during the world, when the world realized that without conserving nature, we are not going to be able to develop, right? It is not either or, it is both. And I said, when you are doing these roads, you can do the roads without destroying the environment. You can do the roads without polluting the rivers. You can do the roads without doing this or the other. And we have a mechanism of ensuring that every action is sustainable, because what we do is an environmental impact assessment. And this assessment is both social, economic, and environmental. So whether you are putting up a fence or a road or nested or whatever you're doing, if you do an impact assessment, how is this going to impact us as a society? Then you'll find 20 things. And what we do is, because we have to do the road, come up with mitigation measures. Mitigation measures are those measures that will allow you to do what you want without that impact, right? So it's not either or. We have to develop. We have to have roads, we have to have electricity, we have to have, and there's some things that we don't have to do. We are at a stage where we can use green energy. If, for example, in Gishagi is those rural areas, 90% of the people use firewood. Can I tell you that in 1920, when Kenya became a colony, a British colony, the Kenya's population was 2.7 million. It's 100 years today, and the Kenya population is 50 million, right? So the 2.7 million people then could use firewood. If we now use firewood, if half of our people use firewood, shall we have forests in the next 4 or 5 years? No. So it's not about this or the other. It's just putting these minds that I'm talking about together, seeing this as a problem and looking at how we can solve them. And now we do not talk about conservation versus development. Conservation is important for development, and development is important for conservation.
Okay, well answered. Let me take questions from the floor. For those online, you can continue posting questions on the public chat.
Thank you. I am very interested in your thoughts on the culture and whether, as we are now, are we unsocialized and live and think which animals actually can accept and comment say that where this place is just outside. You have this children who cannot go to school because of the values that we give. Is there going to be cultural socializing us? We give this woman and also to this much these animals so that we see it as correct.
Maybe we can take 2 more. Let's take 2 more.
Very much for the presentation of Rebecca, your experience and international exposure. Can you tell us even one thing Africa is doing? One thing Africa is doing. Thank you. Thank you very much for a very enlightening conversation. You have generated a lot of ideas in our minds. I would want to ask a question in relation to partnerships. Kenya hosts some of the most progressive organizations. The United Nations Union is here in Nairobi. A lot of well-known international NGOs are based here in Nairobi. And in fact, as you have seen, we have a very robust research and expert-driven community in the areas of environmental conservation, wildlife conservation. But we seem to have a challenge in building robust partnerships that can enable us to solve the problems that are real. And in your experience, having worked here in Kenya and beyond, maybe you can shed some light on how some of these partnerships can be enhanced, can be developed within especially the context of universities, because it seems like we are very blessed. And I will say, like the BBC, we indeed are the center of a lot of good organizations. So maybe we need to just think of what are we missing, what better, what can we do better? Because really, if you travel around Africa, you will find that in Kenya, really, we are very lucky in very many ways.
Maybe we can take last one from Professor Mugai.
So just a very quick one. Is there any hope for my grandchildren who I am really anticipating will come in the future, looking not so young? What hope is there for them? I mean, it looks very, very dire, the situation. And what can we do apart from all the international interventions that are being undertaken? What can we do here now as Kenya, as JKUAT to reverse this process?
Thank you. Let's first take those for now. One is on cultural value, and I think some people in UN have done some study in Masai Mara, estimating to be valued at $73 million per year. But I don't know whether we get that value, and I think he'll respond to that in that perspective. Then the other one on are we doing anything right? What are we doing with the UN and its affiliated bodies? I remember the president talking of a lot of money being spent by UN bodies, but we don't see the things on the ground. And the fourth one on the future generations.
Thank you. There is hope. That's why we are here. We are here because there is hope. But hope is not a strategy. We must get into action. And I'm happy that we have this discussion. And this discussion is not going to end here. We are going to do, if you people are interested.
Wow.
Yes, it's not going to end here. We want each one of us to start thinking outside the box and see what we can do. From the research that you have done, from your thesis, from whatever, we can create a think tank where we sit and you present your issue. And we look at it from A to Z and from in between and try and see how we can use the networks that we have. Because there are many people who are genuinely interested in supporting conservation in Kenya, but they get frustrated. They say, we've been pumping money from 1963, but what do we get? Every thread is going the wrong way. So what is it that needs to be done? I am not able to give what we need to do. That information is available. But to domesticate the action, we must be able to sit and say, this is what we need to do. All the proposals are there. If you look at the proposals from the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, from IUCN, from strategy plans and so on, from Kenya Wildlife, all those things are there. The problem is always in implementation. When you come to implementation, that's where you get into trouble. So I wanted to start with yours. There is hope, but hope is not a strategy. We must do something beyond. And we are saying we can start ganging up and exchanging ideas. I get very hurt when I drive to Nyeri, that's not where I come from, and I see women, 50 women selling mangoes by the roadside. Yeah? You can put all that to be done by one person. Correct? And the others will be growing more mangoes. But who is going to help? And the Minister for Agriculture drives along that road every day. Now, it is us now to say what can be done. When you drive past Keno, you start finding charcoal by the roadside. You will not find it here, but there you'll find it. And that's one of the driest areas. That means for an acacia tree to grow to that height takes 50 years, and then they cut it. We must start looking for solutions. The hope that you'll see an elephant in 100 years is because we have protected areas, and we are going to protect them jealously, although they are facing a lot of challenges. So one good thing we have done is to establish protected areas. And Kenya has among the best managed protected areas in Africa. But according to the world standards, we are still very far. When the president appointed me to be the chair of the Kenya Wildlife Service in 2017, I knew this is a very difficult assignment. What I did was to take the minister, Balala, and the PS and the directors to Canada. I wanted them to see how conservation is done. We went there, went to the field, we had everybody talking to them, and every time their mouths were, wow, wow. When we came back here, status quo. So, whether they support or they don't, at least our protected areas are within the database, the UN database, the World Commission, the World Conservation Monitoring Center, the World Database on Protected Areas. You can't touch them. There will be a bit of screaming. 2, and very important, we have come up with a model of community conservation. The community conservation effort, which was started by KWS in 1989, 1990, is now conserving more biodiversity than all the protected areas put together through their conservancies. In fact, by now, they have protected 12% of Kenya. Protected areas cover 8%. So there is hope. And there are good things that we are doing. The other good thing we are doing is that we have institutions such as this one, and we are training people. So when we have the capacity, the brain power, and those resources, we cannot be desperate. But we must say it as it is. Because when things are not working, they're not working. And if that trend has continued for 50 years, we are approaching what we call the inflection point. The inflection point is where the change becomes permanent, a point of no return. We must not get there. It's not cultural, because some of the best community conservation areas are there, so they understand. What has happened, or what has been happening, is that the leaders would like to keep people at a certain level. I remember I was just from Saimara twice in 1990 when I was doing the impact research on the impact of tourism on wildlife. They did not want me there. Why? Because I'm exposing things. I was at the University of Nairobi then. They don't want people to know that it is wrong, it is immoral, it is illegal, it is not good for meat to Kikorok to be supplied by aeroplane every morning, where the Maasais are the ones who keep livestock. The food is flown there every morning. In those, I don't know whether it has changed, but that is what was happening. But there's something that can be done so that we can get meat from Narok. We can get onions from Narok. We can get tomatoes from Narok. They get into those cartels, so there is no value added to local. And if they don't go to school, then you're able to control them. But the situation is changing. They now know through the community conservation effort that when we talk of coffee in Central Province and tea, then they say this wildlife is our coffee and it is our tea. So there is hope. Partnerships that Winnie is talking about. I think you should be the expert in telling us why they don't work, because you've been here all along. I think they don't work because of political interference. I was a chairman of Kenya Wildlife Service when I don't remember how many rhinos died when we were translocating them. Can anybody remember? 11. And they died when I had taken Balala and the PS and the directors to Canada. So we were learning from the newspapers that the rhinos have died. Because of wanting to shift blame, the government decided that WWF, that had given 100 million shillings to do the translocation and build a sanctuary, which was 100 square kilometers, and provide water and water was to blame. And after doing the assessment, they were not to blame. But other NGOs wanted the blame to go to WWF because they are competitors. So when we get those kind of politics at the NGO level, at the government level, at every level, then we are not able to form good partnerships. One of the reasons I was kicked out of the Mara in 1990 twice was because I was working for the Wildlife Conservation International. It's now called the WCS, Wildlife Conservation Society. That's a conservation arm of New York Zoological Society. WWF had taken Masai Mara as its territory. So nobody else was welcome. So there are all those petty, stupid politics which take place. But because of lack of direction from our political leaders themselves, then we allow all those games to get into play. And as they say, when elephants fight, the grass suffer. I think you can write a book on that. You are more experienced. Me, I managed to escape and go to a place where things work. and that's why, I can sit with you and tell you things can work. That's why I could take the minister and the PS and whatever and tell them things can work. And you know, in 2006, I persuaded the government of Canada to establish a memorandum of understanding with the Kenya Wildlife Service so that we can start giving money to Kenya Wildlife Service to conserve. And I flew here with the minister, Ron Ambrose, the Minister for Wildlife. And we signed the agreement. And we started giving KWS money. And I would write the proposals for KWS, tell them this is what we need. From here, this is what we need in order to give you money. In 2012, we gave them $1 million. But that is the last money they got, because some of it they actually had to refund because they don't use it the way they're supposed to use it, and on and on and on. So there are many problems. If there is goodwill, it is possible. Sorry, I have to stop talking. What I would like as a way forward is to have a session with those people who are interested, people who have ideas, and then we see how we can push them. Thank you. Allow me to go home now.
Thank you, Dr. for those informative responses. Let me read a few comments and questions from our online viewers. We have many of them. These are like a comment, student lack work study or practical exposure. So the universities offer theoretical work, and so they are not well equipped. I think that's a challenge we have taken from Daktari, and we are going to take it up. There exists vicious cycle of degradation. This is a comment, poverty, loss of environmental degradation, etc. That one is large spaces. Can this be used as the starting point of conservation? I think JKUAT, we are doing something like that with this SAJOREC garden. And Daktari, when we are through, you can have a walk in our conservation area in this complex. Then one talks of inadequate funding in the universities. This is a reality. Then we need multidisciplinary approach. That's what you ended up with, that we need engineers, we need people from all disciplines. Then with conservation and advocacy for cleaner environment, the call for environmental responsibility really calls for radical advocacy and campaigns, which is apocalyptic. How do we draw a line between logical advocacy, awareness creation, and pseudoscience approach that is similar to brainwashed zeal? So I think, yes, we are saying there are many environmental activists, but sometimes some of them may have not good facts on the ground. Then there are major threats. The major threats to conservation is political, social, and economic. Kenya University are not putting any emphasis on attaining this. How do we ensure that our graduates get advanced skills relevant to suit the competitive job market? I think those are the challenges that Dr. Idaka has given us in his last slides on the roles of the universities. We used to have serious activism on conservation, which is now diminishing. Are conservation process drivers giving up? Those are the questions that they are posing. I think in the interest of time, I don't know if we take one more or two that is pressing and that is not touching on what has been commented on us. Anything that is outside what we have discussed? Anything? Dr. Geshua? Or Dr. Jonge, Professor Jonge? Just anything that has not been touched, that's burning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. for that insightful presentation. Mine is only to request that since you're still Kenyan, continue giving us hints on where funding can come from. Because it will be fruitless to keep on making proposals rejected. And of course, you have said it rightfully that if you're not very sure where and who can actually fund, it's a waste of time. So since, like I said, we are still Kenyan, we have come to this university, we have seen there are people you can work with, continue giving us those hints. And I can assure you, then we'll be able to work with you because it is very interesting to see that we can actually get involved in this conservation issue. Thank you very much.
We can have Dr. Gichua, then I think I saw a hand at the back there.
Yeah, I think touch on the funding, I think our role is not touched. And thank you so much for the talk, Dr. We have seen you in the conservation for very many years. And of course, you have been very touched. You have worked with the government for a very long time, and you know how government works. Please just educate us on what has educated the government to go on a policy shift towards a reduction of funding in conservation or in the universities. Because there must be, previously used to get enough funding and you expose our students from first year to fourth year, you take them to ecosystems in Kenya. And by the time they left here, some of them went straight to conservation. Right now, students will come from the village, they will come to class and leave from class without ever going outside this university. So this will not give them any interest in conservation. Then, please comment at this. I know you are aware about a man called Oganda who has written a book called The Big White Lie. And he argues that this is bringing our people much more poverty than they already are in. And the field of conservation has been left to foreigners. So from what you have seen and what you have worked in, he argues that it is very hard for Kenyans, indigenous Kenyans, to get into conservation. Please comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have the last two. I will only allow Dr. Muya and the last one over there, I think from among the students. Yes, then you can make just a brief comment as we finish.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for that very informed discussion. But my comment was going to what Dr. Kishua said, because I remember when we were students, we would pack and go for field work, 1 or 2 weeks, and that exposed us to even the situations that are already in the field, and it was very informing. However, I have also another opinion, because Kenya is a very religious country. Actually, maybe I'm wondering whether you have ever met with the religious leaders and trying to see whether conservation can be brainstormed, what is it called? Mainstream intelligence. Because when you look at Genesis 1:28, and God blessed them, and God said them, be fruitful, be fertile, and increase, fill the earth, be masters, subdue the fish, the sea, the bird, the sky. It's like we have a very open check, and then that could be one of the reasons why humans have this kind of dominion attitude towards everything else. It is me, I and myself, and everything else is secondary. So maybe next time, call a conference with religious leaders and try to impact some conservation within the religion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muya. Be very brief, just allow you 10 seconds.
Thank you very much, Dr. John. This was a very good presentation. It was very informative. I had it's a comment and sort of question. It's called the touching on the conservation of water resources. Over the last years, recently, there have been two major issues international. One is international, one it's international, but it is in Africa. The other one it is also in relation to our neighbors, Ethiopia. The first one, which is international, is concerning the Ethiopia building a hydropower, a grand renaissance now, to provide hydropower to these people. Egypt is very much opposed to that. Recently, Ethiopia just built a hydropower dam, which would actually take away water from one of the main rivers supplying water to the Turkana. How should the conservationists of the universities, what should be the position of conservationists at the universities with those kinds of issues? Because we're hearing so much from professionals who are fighting
Thank you. Before you respond, Madam VC, you want to make a comment or some comments? This is your time.
Thank you very much. Mine is very brief. I hope you can hear me, although you can't see me. Just two suggestions.
Thank you.
One is Dr. Waithaka has several times requested that he gets a team that he can sit with to come up with, to look at some of these issues and way forward. I think that is something you need to come out of here with, out of this meeting. And I want to say in this meeting, I'm sitting as a biologist. I'm not sitting as a VC, so I'm talking as a biologist. And I'm requesting that you come up with a team. You'll decide whether the team will be just people from botany and zoology, but I don't think so, because as I've heard the questions, there's somebody who was asking about water conservation. Somebody was talking about, I even saw other people like Professor Jonge also just asked a question. So I think it might be a bigger committee than just biologists, but I think that's a good way forward. I also challenged you when I was giving my opening speech, and I said there aren't many fora where we are able to come together as biologists to share ideas and come up with a way forward. I think you can champion the Dean School of Biological Sciences with the principal. You can champion this by coming up with a conference, which you'll be having every year or maybe biannually or whatever. I've seen the same thing happening in the School of Communication. They are now having their meeting, School of Business. So even you now, you can see their topics for discussion, their areas of research, which have been presented to us very well by our speaker, Dr. Waithaka. He has brought us the issues in the field. So those are just two things I wanted to comment on, as now I take a backseat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam VC. I think we'll take up that challenge with support of the principal and the DVCRP to come up with a team and work with the Professor Waithaka on the way forward from this very informative conference. Maybe, Doctor, you can take a minute or two to respond to those questions or comments from the floor.
When we think about funding, as I said, money flows where needs are being met. So if we are able to identify needs that can convince those people who carry the funding envelope, then we'll be able to get money. And as I said about the Kenya Wildlife Service, when I got them $1 million and they did not use it well, then it becomes a problem because the donors will not now want to engage. So as I said, universities are supposed to be centers of excellence, and part of the excellence comes from integrity. So those are some of the things that we are going to pursue as we go forward. But with that multidisciplinary team, we are likely to come up with issues that are critically important for the conservation of biodiversity that have impact on social and economic and political well-being of Kenyans. When it is packaged like that, it has a lot bigger buy-in than when we are just talking about the ecology of the blooded mongoose, the budded mongoose, and so on. So those are some of the things that if you form this that group, then we'll be able to tease out things, disaggregate things, and see what fits where and who can help where, and so on. The issue of Lake Turkana, which is a World Heritage Site, and Ethiopia, I am most conversant with those things because I represent Africa in the World Heritage Panel. The World Heritage Panel is the one that decides on which sites are going to be listed as World Heritage Sites, then what sites should be put on the danger list, and so on and so forth. And that's where Lake Turkana is. It is not there because Kenya has done the wrong things. It is there because for the purpose it was put on the World Heritage Site, those purposes are being threatened by those dams. And what the UNESCO World Heritage Site Convention is doing is to put Lake Turkana on the site in danger, so that other members of UNESCO can scream at Ethiopia. Now, there's nothing wrong with Ethiopia developing a dam, as we have said. We've said it's not either or, conservation or development. Those have to go together. So the question is, did they do the right things through the environment assessment process? The problem we have, and I've put it in one of my presentations, is that we have pseudo-scientists who are told to do an environmental impact assessment with a predetermined outcome. So they get that consultancy, and then they say, oh, there will be no problem. So a country goes ahead, and then a time comes when everybody is raising eyebrows. And that's where I was saying the university can play an objective role in putting issues the right way. Normally, those pseudoscientists are university researchers. That's what we have found. If you're in the food industry, we are saying Coca-Cola is the best, but we know the impacts. They say sugar is best. They say this. And the role of the university is to provide that objective research that then can go into decision making. I think people want to do the right things if they get the right information. So again, it is not either or, it is that the processes have not been followed. And this has caused all these problems. Conservationists who are activists are many of them are a big problem because they are just paid to say only elephants will wear ivory, and they don't even know, they don't even understand. We want people who enter into advocacy from a point of knowledge. And when you get into advocacy and the thinking is skewed, you cause the decision makers to actually write you off and write off the cause for which you are pushing. We have animal rights groups that advocate for those romantic views that I was telling you about. So when you lean too much on their side and you fail to be objective, then you are not helping the cause. We want good science, and with good science, we are going to fight the good fight. I don't know what else I needed to talk about. church. I can make this a pulpit. So we are told to fill the earth and subdue it. Well, the thing is, I do tell people, you must know how big your earth is so that you just feel it. If you have 1 acre, that is your earth. And we know the concept of carrying capacity, right? Even my Guka or my grandpa knows with 3 acres, he cannot keep 20 cows. Anyway, I don't think the problem is with the church, because there is also through the UNESCO, there is a program that is involving the spiritual leaders in conservation. But without political will, and that is the underlying factor. Without political will, we are getting nowhere. The other thing is, if you say no to the political establishment, nobody comes to defend you. You are left on your own. I think in Africa, about 20 environmental defenders are killed every year. And they are killed by state agencies or agents. That information is available. Because conservation has not gotten traction. You know, if you kill somebody for something else, you're in trouble. But when it is, there's a lady who was sprayed with bullets in Nairobi last year. You remember? Yeah. Who screams? Nobody. Yeah. So what we are saying is we should not trivialize the conservation agenda and engage activists who make our work even harder. If I know Winnie understands these things because she has been in elephant conservation for a long time. And that is the hot potato in conservation. Everywhere we are talking about conservation, the elephant in the room is always the elephant. But we can make headways, and we started doing that in 1996 when I was the coordinator of the elephant program in Kenya. We started doing that. But when you make a scientific approach to things, you start getting undercut. And when you get undercut, there's nobody now who comes to support you. So you get fired from the job and you are on your own. So I think we are going to create a forum that can produce the right information. Kenyans, if given the right information, I think will act. If they know the impact of biodiversity loss, they will take action. These days, I see a lot of people walking in the morning, others running, because somebody has told them, if you don't do this, this is what is likely to happen. So information is power, and that is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Once again. I think we are coming to an end of this seminar. Let me invite Dr. Grades to give very brief closing remarks and vote of thanks, then any announcement.
Our guest speaker, Dr. Waithaka, the Vice Chancellor JKUAT, hope she's still online.
Yeah.
The DVC RPE, Professor Abkotsa, the Principal, the Director, Research and Innovations, my fellow members of staff and students, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity to first appreciate our guest speaker for the very informative speech and interactive session we've had with him. You can agree with me that this was very informative and it has created some critical thinking and desire to go out there as a university and make an influence and make an effect on wildlife conservation. I first want to challenge ourselves from the speech that he has given us, the dire situation of wildlife or of the environment that is, the loss of enough space of Lake Chad, the reduced numbers of our elephants, among others. That one touched me, and I know you saw it. As part of the ecosystem, as part of the environment, then we must do something. We've also learned that we are the brains of the society, and as a university of excellence, we must move in. We must swiftly move in and make this difference to restore what is lost. But the encouragement we have here is that we have big brains, and therefore we have resources, and there are ways of getting collaborations within Kenya and without to make this agenda work. And therefore, I want to encourage the members who are here, those ones who are following us online, the university community, to take this agenda very seriously and participate in bringing this difference, not only in our country, but even out there. As I conclude, I want to mention to our guest speaker that it is true that this knowledge, this information must first be integrated in the minds of young people who are coming up, who are also the force of change in future. So in this congregation, and those ones who are following online, we have our postgraduate students, our undergraduate students from the Department of Zoology, Botany, and the rest of the university. And therefore, we want you students to take up this challenge. You are the change for today and tomorrow. Take up this challenge and move with it. We also have student leaders with us here. We appreciate your presence, student leaders. Be the pillars in making change in this University of Excellence. So I don't want to speak much, but to appreciate, in the interest of time, to appreciate all members who have participated in making this seminar a success. I don't want to forget you, Director, Research and Innovation, for the critical role that you did. Please give him a hand clap. My boss, the principal, you know the role that you have played that made this day be what it is. Please give him a hand clap. My immediate boss, Dr. Mwangi, your role also. Let's appreciate him as well. Together with me, the senior members of the School of Biological Sciences, our outgoing COD, Dr. Gishua, incoming COD, Dr. Were, my fellow members of staff senior to me, Dr. Muya and Dr. Winnie. We appreciate also these members. Thank you so much. So on behalf of Jomo Kenyatta University, Dr. Waithaka, please accept our appreciation. We also look forward, as Professor Njonge mentioned, to have more linkages or more collaborations to have this agenda work not only for the university, but for our country and for Africa. Thank you so much once again. And I just want to ask this director to mention something as to make announcements or mention something as we conclude.
Thank you very much, Gladys, and all protocols observed. I think, thank you very much. I don't want to repeat what she has said, but I think, Gladys, there is a cup of tea.
Yes, yes.
Please, don't go, there will be a cup of tea. We will take a group photo also, just at the entrance. At the main entrance, we'll all go there immediately, take a group photo, then we'll come back for a cup of tea and probably a snack, I think. And then, key members, we do this very often. We host seminars and webinars. So always feel free to approach us, and we'll be very glad to work with you to do this. This was one very successful one. At one point, we had 15 people watching live on YouTube. We had 136 Zoom registrations. And at one point, we had about 50 people following on Zoom. And we have about 65 people seated here. So clap for yourself. We have an upcoming conference on 24th and 25th, the JKUAT annual conference. Please visit our website, conference.jkuat.ac.ke. It will be physical and virtual. So what has happened here will be happening on those 2 days, okay? So feel free to send the invitation to your colleagues, wherever. They can join from Ukraine, Russia, Canada, and wherever, and we'll be happy. Thank you very much. I think we can have a word of prayer. We can have a word of prayer by Dr. Who? Moya, you want to pray? Professor Dio goes to pray.
Let us pray. Father, we want to give thanks to you for such a good time. They have been very educative to all of us. And we want to pray that God, you, out of this, will make plans for future development, future research, future collaborations and others. And we pray that God, as we do this, guide us. Bless all of us. Bless our speaker. Give him long life and much more, even to tell others wherever you go. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you very much. So we will take a quick walk to the main entrance for a quick group photo.